Hi guys, can you hear me? Okay, great, thank you. So, yeah, sorry for the background. I'm at home right now, and yeah, I didn't worry about the background too much. So let's probably start. I see a lot of you here today, and like many things actually will be for the first time for me today. I'm doing a live stream directly on YouTube for the first time today. I'm using a tool called OBS Studio. I don't know if any one of you already know it, but that's something new and some other stuff. And I got familiar with the React course like a couple days ago myself. So yeah, there are too many things that can go wrong, but hopefully they won't. And yeah, wish me good luck. And let's start. So, um, let's probably I suggest starting with some engagement thing. So I will share my screen right now, and you should be able to see uh, a screen with menti.com actually. And let me know when you see it. Yep, okay. Just give me a second actually. Let me switch just quickly to see the chat live on my screen. So, excellent. I see it now. Um, yep, let me reshare. So you should be able to see my screen again. So yeah, please go to menti.com and enter this code to connect to this board, or just use this QR code to join. Okay. Sorry for this. Yep, as I said, some things might go wrong. Okay, I'm seeing some results already. So how many countries do we actually have in here? I'm participating in in some global rolling scopes course for the first time, so it's interesting for myself too. So I see Minsk, I see Ukraine, Azerbaijan, and I also saw, I think, Uzbekistan. Yeah, uh, it was in white, but I lost it. Oh, here it is. Yeah, I'm pointing out Uzbekistan because I myself am from Uzbekistan. So Tashkent is also here. Yeah, Poland, Kharkov, Azerbaijan. Yeah, actually too many countries. I am surprised myself. Moscow and some generic country from somebody. That's interesting. Okay, that's great. I already see 62 answers. I think we can move on. We also that there are so many countries in here today. So what we will do today. First, let me introduce myself. My name is Shazis, and I'm a Rolling Scopes contributor. Um, and today we will actually get familiar with Rolling Scopes itself, first of all, and then we will switch to getting to know the React course, which we'll be launching. And after all of that, we will have a Q&A session in which you can ask questions and I'll try to answer them. Anything that I will not be able to answer, you can ask in Discord channel. You probably already know that. And people from there will help you. So let's move on. Let's switch now to uh, actually, let me switch the screens. Yeah, let's start with the Rolling Scopes introduction. So just give me a second. So yeah, let's go. So you like this presentation was not prepared actually by me. This presentation was prepared by the person you see here, who is actually our founder of the Rolling Scopes community. It was founded in 2013. His name is Dmitry Vorobey. He's kinda Captain Jack Sparrow, but in our case, Dima Sparrow. But yeah, basically this is the founder, and I'm just a lazy person who will reuse his presentation. So let's go with what Rolling Scopes itself is. Most of you probably heard about Rolling Scopes in the context of different courses, like the React course that you are joining. But actually, Rolling Scopes is a lot more huge than that. It's an international community. It's not only about courses. As I already told, it was organized in 2013, and like the community is about technologies like JavaScript, iOS, Android, and machine learning. So yeah, this was, I suppose, I don't really honestly know myself for sure, but I suppose this was the original team who started Rolling Scopes, and this was our first logo, which is now a bit different. It's like this one, RS minimalistic logo right here on the top right. So yeah, and the Rolling Scopes community's mission is actually to create some sort of community in which software engineers will be able to share their ideas and knowledge, discover new technologies, and one of the things that is like very important to me, have fun together. So hopefully we will have fun together today. Yep. And what does Rolling Scopes do, like as a community, except the courses that you already know and the Rolling Scopes school? We organize different meetups. As you can see, there were more than 80 meetups already across the globe. And you can see some of the photos here and here. Some of them are here. Also, we did 8 conferences. Again, some photos from these conferences. Yeah, and we also organized some JS Dev Days. And as you can see, we organized them since 2018. Basically, JS Dev Day is a quiz in which engineers just like join some offline location together and start solving some quizzes in the context of JavaScript. And the winners, of course, get some prizes. So, except those kind of standard events, we also have like sub-communities inside of the Rolling Scopes. I would even say that Rolling Scopes community is actually now some sort of tree of communities. We have, for example, RS AWS Club, which you see here. And except that you already know RS School, which is also some sort of community on its own. Except that we also have a recent sort of online community which I'm currently working on, which is RS Club, which also has its some sub-communities in itself, like RS Startup Club, RS School Club again, and RS Architecture Club, and that list is expected to be extended. So let's talk about RS AWS Club first. So this club was organized together with AWS actually, and it focuses on technologies Node.js and AWS with Node.js. In there, we again regularly just share ideas, answer questions, and learn about new services and best practices together with AWS experts. Actually, we also organize different meetups for this RS AWS club. For example, we had a recent meetup in Tashkent here, but we helped to create AWS user groups in different cities except Tashkent. Like Yerevan, Astana, Almaty, Bishkek, and etc. You can find our communities, like different AWS communities and user groups, by these links: AWS/dash Tashkent and AWS user group Armenia, all located in meetup.com. Yep, except that we also have courses in scope of RS AWS Club. They are usually for preparing students to AWS certification, and the next course will begin on March 14th, as you can see here. So let's move on to RS School, the community that all of you probably already know because now you are part of it. What RS School is? As you already probably again know, it's free of charge community which prepares some courses to be able to learn things like React, JavaScript, in general front-end technologies, Node.js, even mobile technologies. And this Rolling Scopes school community exists actually since 2013, as you can see here. So the community is pretty huge, as you can see. It's over 35k people already, and we have almost 2000 graduates every year. Community, of course, have already its own developed principles and traditions. We have Discord servers and Telegram channels for you to chat about different things, either ask questions or just chat and spam if you want with other students. Except that all of the educational programs are actually available open source on GitHub, and we also have like lectures on YouTube which are also available freely. You can find them in this channel, or if you know Russian, there is also a Rolling Scopes channel in Russian. And one of the tools that you will be mostly working with in scope of RS School React course is probably RS RS App. This was a tool and application built by the Rolling Scopes school community to be able to track tasks there, to be able to track the results, the submissions of the students, their scores, and different runs through the years. Basically, it's a learning management system as said here. And the structure of or roles, I would say, of our Rolling Scope school is that we have, of course, students like you, and they at some point can become either RS activists. These are the students who have been helping around with different things to each other and to other students, and they get a role of RS activist. Except that they can all, of course, graduate when they finish the course successfully, right? But what happens after graduation is, of course, you can find a job. That's obvious. But in scope of Rolling Scope School, you can also become a mentor and or a trainer, or you can also become a Rolling Scope School contributor, like I became. Or you can actually go with your different talks to our events like meetups or conferences as a speaker. And we will actually get back to like becoming a mentor or trainer a bit later too, when we will be talking about the traditions as Teach It Forward principle. Yeah, we are, turns out that we are already here. So basically we have one very important principle in Rolling Scope School, which is Teach It Forward. According to this principle, now you are a student, right? And you can study our courses for free, completely for free, without any fee. But we actually kindly ask you to, after successful graduation, to become a mentor on your own. This way you can like pay back Rolling Scope School and help other students develop their skills too, by sharing your knowledge and passing what you got from the course to others. And yeah, this is like why this principle is very important, because the whole community is almost built around this principle. Like when, let's imagine that one student becomes a mentor, and that student actually as a mentor can start mentoring, like let's say a couple of other students, right? And then each of them become mentor on their own, and they also become like help multiple other students, and this way we grow, as you can see from this short like simple image. Okay, also one of our philosophies of the Rolling Scope School is open source philosophy. As I already mentioned earlier, all of the school materials are publicly available and open source, either on GitHub or YouTube. You can freely use them anytime you want. GitHub, for those of you who don't know for some reason, is located like it's named Rolling Scope School, and its location is github.com/Rolling Scope School with dashes in between. And yeah, let me reopen the presentation once again. And YouTube channel is, for example, the one that you're right now on. And then I already mentioned RS School app, so I think we can skip this slide. And yeah, regarding the courses, these are some of the examples of the courses that we have in different languages. In Russian, we actually have more courses because we have more mentors in it and more students. And Russian, I think, was the first, like the initial language in which we started doing courses actually. So we have courses on JavaScript/TypeScript/frontend. This is one single course, and we have the same course in English. Except that we have like courses both in Russian and English for Angular, React, and Node.js. Oh, sorry. In English, we don't have Node.js course. We have just Node.js in AWS. The same thing with Russian, and then in Russian we also have machine learning intro and Android/iOS courses. So if you know Russian, welcome to either of these courses if you are interested in any of this. And yeah, you can also find out more in the Rolling Scope School site, which is rs.school. And I will also probably share most of these links later, either in the comments section or in the description of this stream. So let's move on. And let's take a look at some of the statistics of how well we actually do with RS School. We are currently in 9 countries with the school, and there are 522 mentors. Actually, this number probably grew up because this slide was presented a while ago. And we have 1,860 graduates who graduated Rolling Scope School, different courses. So, and one of the like show-offs here, actually, I'm glad that this is the example that this presentation has for some reason, but yeah, it is Rolling Scope's Uzbekistan community, in which I also participate, and we have an awesome community here. So let's look through like what we do here. And the interesting thing is other communities in other locations are probably similar to this one. So you will get the idea of how the community in each location looks just by looking at this one. So this was a photo from our first graduation in which I also was a student. Not sure if you can find me. I was, it's probably hard, but yeah, it was 2019, and it was actually a short track course, front-end course. We had it for 3 months, I think. So it was a lot like shorter than you would expect in traditional our front-end course, but it was a pretty intensive one. So basically, like, yeah, there are some more photos of first graduates, but unfortunately I'm not here for some reason. So let's skip this quickly. And we, after that, actually, many graduates who graduated from the first course, like me, became mentors on our own, and probably even contributors, even like at least like later in the process. So basically, we started organizing different offline workshops for the next courses, which you can see here. I think this was the stage 0 initiative at that time. So, and there are some more and more photos of different year graduations, like this is 2020, and you will see how we grew actually. Yeah, still 2020. Actually, these are also some offline events that we had. We either gathered with some other mentors or had even lectures. I remember here talking about Webpack, I think, to the students. And this should be either an open day or some sort of lecture here too. So let's move on. This is graduation 2021, and then 2021, but Q3 already. And here we go, like just look at the amount of people here. But actually, to be honest, it's not probably all of the graduates. Most probably we just had an open day, and some part of this crowd is graduates. Other part is just the students of the new run of the course, which just came to the open day. So, and yeah, we also had JavaScript Dev Days in our location too, and this is an example of that. We had a pretty fun quiz actually. You can see like it involves different teams of people, which gather around like some common table of some sort, as you can see here. So yeah, and then we had our first Rolling Scopes meetup actually. This was pretty interesting event in which we learned a lot for our location too, like because it was the first meetup. And funny story, I actually had allotted a time for my talk, like for probably half an hour or so, but spent more than an hour, I think close to 2 hours, I think. So yeah, this was a pretty like valuable experience for each of us then. And after that, yeah, some more graduations, 2022 Q1. And these are the statistics for our location only since 2019, since Rolling Scope School actually initially launched here. So we had more than 10 course runs, and we had more than 10 offline events, some of which I already mentioned before. We have lots of mentors, 40 plus. Graduates, as usual, not so many, because like the percentage of graduates is not so many, but we have 50 plus and maybe even more, because again, this presentation is somewhat out of date already. Out of these graduates actually, and except these graduates, even some of those who did not graduate the course, 30 plus people became like employed by EPAM. So, and yeah, our location is also probably a good example of teach it forward principle. In this photograph, you see lots of people who were the students themselves initially and became the mentors. Most of the people here are the examples of teach it forward principle. So, yep, that's it regarding the Rolling Scopes community itself and Rolling Scopes School community and other communities like RSAWS Club. So, this is it for the community showcase, and let's move on. Let me actually just quickly take a look at the chat if there is something interesting. So, how long will this stream take? 2 hours. Yep. Yeah, the time slot is scheduled for 2 hours. I'm not sure. Maybe we will be able to finish this stream earlier. How much time the course will take? Okay. Let's actually gather such questions for the end of the session, because some of the questions will be covered during my speech when I will be reviewing the course with you. And if I will not be able to cover your questions, then as you will be able to ask them during the Q&A session, in which I'll try to answer all of them. Okay. Yeah, I don't think I see anything important right now. So yeah, let's move on. Let's move to next in our plan. I think we have the course overview itself. So here you can find the course like description itself with the course plan, what will be involved, different like the course program with different weeks. We will have like a total of 11 weeks. The list of lecturers, you will be able to get to know the topics which we will cover in the program, and you will be able to even like get yourself familiarized with the resources theory, which is also listed here. So let's start with the general overview of the structure of the course probably. Just a second. I wanted to share the link to this page in case some of you don't have it. Let me try to share a link in the chat. I'm not sure if YouTube will allow me to do that, but I'll try. Okay, I can do it. That's great. So yeah, the link is in the chat. You can easily just go and go through it with me, for example. So let's go. So the course itself is like in duration, it's 7 weeks for the learning program in which you will develop a single application, and then 3 more weeks for a teamwork final task implementation. And we will talk about the final task a bit later. And to answer the question which was asked, like how much time will this course take? This is it, like 7 weeks plus 3 weeks for the final task. And there is week number 11 for just cross-check review of the final task that you implemented with your team by other teams, basically. And you will need, like, as you already are probably familiar if you are from the Rolling Scope School front-end course, the courses here are pretty intensive. So this course, for example, requires 20 to 40 hours per week of your involvement. So nobody said that it will be easy, right? Okay. So to whom this course is actually available? It's either that you have already passed stage number 2 of the RS School front-end course, as said here, or you are a new student in the Rolling Scope School, but you already have experience with this list of technologies like JavaScript, TypeScript. Everything actually in this course will be written in TypeScript. Git and GitHub, because they are like basic tools which will very often be used in your development professional career. NPM and Webpack, of course, but actually Webpack is a bit outdated here. In this course, you're kind of free to use any other alternatives, because Webpack we don't require you to set up Webpack from scratch, and we will see in the week 1 program that we even don't require you to use Create React App, which was usually a standard scaffolding tool before in the previous rounds of this course. Some basic skills like CSS3 and HTML5 are also expected in this course. Chrome DevTools, which also should be familiar to any one of you who has at least some experience in web development already, and you are expected to be able to use Figma, because if there will be designs, they will be in Figma. Also, the last but probably not least thing here is to be able to interact with different APIs, external and internal ones. And in this course, we will actually not have any internal API as far as I know. So, and yeah, let's go through the course program itself now. As I already told, first 7 weeks of this course, first six weeks is learning material and developing of a single application, which is basically, let me show. Which will, yeah, okay, I don't see it here. Well, basically you will develop a single simple application with a search bar and a list of cards which will show the results of the search for your search term. Basically, let's imagine a search bar like this or like this, right? And then when you click search, there will be some cards like these. So in a words side, you can see some cards, or here in, I'm not sure what this site is about, but yeah, basically such cards or such cards, any sort of cards. You are actually free to use any UI that you want. So yeah, and let's probably start with week 1. we already talked about it a bit. So in week 1, you will be just scaffolding, setting up your project, initial setup, and you're free to use any tool you want. And you will receive some helpful assets or resources that you will need to accomplish the task itself here. And basically the task here will be to draw a main page with a search bar with the examples that I already showed, and a list of like cards. And here one of the interesting points is that the more details are on the card, the better, because we want to we want you to challenge yourself into drawing a bit more complicated UIs. So more complex cards with different informations on it would be useful here. Some of the examples of cards, I have already shown them. And also one of the interesting points about the search bar here is that the search value will need to be saved to local storage. But actually, you will probably get through this list of like detailed instructions actually on your own, so let's not dive too deep. Basically this task is about setting up your project and drawing some simple UI on it. Also, except that like in each week, in each of the tasks in first 6 weeks, you will be writing tests. So in this task you will set up the test runner initially, right? It can be like Jest or VTest or anything you want, and React testing library as a library for testing. So and there is also a requirement for the minimal code test coverage. In each, like during the course program, this threshold will increase. For the first week, it's just 40%. It's basically a very easy limit that you can easily achieve. So except that, yeah, actually let's probably go through just the next sections in this. So the quiz part, nothing. Oh yeah, quizzes. Quizzes are also the things that are related to all of the tasks in each week, and like even outside of the scope of the weeks and tasks. Not really. The quizzes are limited to the weeks, to the first 6 weeks. Basically, after each week, after you accomplish each task, there will be a quiz to check your knowledge. It will consist only of theoretical questions, no practical questions. And to get access to those quizzes, you will need to check Discord announcements. And for each task in the first 6 weeks, again, the score is calculated similarly. So it will be checked with cross-check and cross-code review processes. Cross-code review is actually something new in the React course. That's the first time we will be experimenting with it. And during these processes, you'll get some scores for different criteria. So let's start with the cross-check process, actually. So cross-check process, for those of you who are not familiar with it, in the front-end course, we actually have similar process. But basically, that's the step when other students will try to launch your application, your task, your submission, and check if everything matches the acceptance criteria that are listed here. Like you can see here, and then you can also see them basically here in the section where the points are described, right? So other students will check your work and score your work according to these points. For the week 1 task, you can get up to 15 points in the cross-check process. And there are also some like points that you can lose. The score can be less. For example, if some functionality doesn't work in your application, you'll get some less points, of course, right? And if the test coverage in your code is below 40%, which is a requirement for this task, you'll also get some penalty points. Also, like the point number 3 and 4 is related to cross-code review process. So let's skip this for now and let's get to cross-code review process itself. So what is cross-code review process? I'll get like to a bit slower pace here. I think I might be speaking too fast actually. So the cross-code review process is when, again, other students review your code, basically, the code that you have written for this task. They'll open your submission, your branch of this task, and just go through your code and assess it according to either like these criteria, like they'll try to lint to run linter on your code, and you will need to add a specific script in package.json file to allow them that. And then they will also run tests on your code. Again, these are like the important criteria for getting high scores, because if any of these won't work or will have some issues, you'll get penalties. And at the last step, they will review the code for some code smells, generic code smells, like in React props drilling. You'll get to know these code smells probably during the course. Or if some of the components are kind of very large, huge files, they are also called God components. Or if in React we discourage direct DOM manipulation, except in some cases which will be covered in the course. But basically, if you do direct DOM manipulation, that's also a bad practice and a code smell, and you'll get some penalties for it, most probably too. And of course, some generic out of React context best practices like and principles like KISS, Dry, and Yagni. There are also some mentions for single responsibility principle in Solid, or like any other principle in Solid. Basically, some of the students might review for those principles too, if they are familiar with. And you can read, and we actually encourage you to read about these principles, because they are anyways very important like for your software development skills. And if you want to do a career in this sphere, of course, they are also important. So there are some articles that are listed here, so please read them. And yeah, basically, if there will be some code smells, or the reviewers will meet some redundant comments, then that's also a penalty in score. So don't do that. And again, direct DOM manipulation is absolute no. So if you have direct DOM manipulation in module 1, then you get 0 points. So please pay attention to this. Yeah, and then you have some requirements for the how to set up repository. You can read it offline. Again, as I said, some links for their resources that you can read about the topics, theory, and then React documentation, probably some of them. Yeah. Yep, that's basically it for the week number 1. Week number 2, it will be about React forms. If week number 1 was about, yeah, I forgot to mention that, but week number 1 is aimed to focus around like basic skill of creating React components. And week number 2, it will be around forms in React. And in this task, you will need to add some functionality to your application, which you already built in the previous step and set it up. So what will be the task here? You will need to set up a form in which like you will have at least a single one control of these types, but you can have multiple of them. And basically what the task from the functionality perspective will be here is to gather the input that user entered in these controls, and then submit all of the input, save it in the browser, so that and display all of the submissions as a list of cards actually. the cars that you have already built in the previous task. So you will be able to reuse them most probably. So yeah, you can find some more like deeper details here later offline. And yeah, also for your form, you will also need to implement some form validation. It can be some basic thing like required fields. For example, if you are submitting user profiles, then name might be a required field, right? And you will need to implement some UI feedback for that. For example, if I, as a dumb user, if I try to submit a form without my name, then UI should show some, like for example, a red border with a message saying that the name is required or something like that, right? So yeah, this is basically the task from the functionality perspective. Technically, what's interesting here is that you need to use only React here. No external libraries like jQuery or any React form library. They are not allowed at this step. That's because we want you to get familiar with React capabilities in the first place. And as usual, here you will need to add some tests. The test coverage limit here is 50% already. Yep, and basically that's it for this task. Everything else is very similar. There will be a quiz, there will be some, like if you have some questions, just ask them in Discord. There will be cross-code review process and cross-check process. You can find some criteria here again. And the same repository requirements basically, and some links to this topic for the resources in theory. So yeah, that's it for the week 2. Let's move on towards week 3. Week 3 will be around the topic of React hooks. Why just now? Because in the first week, actually, there is a requirement that all of your components must be class components and you will not be using hooks. That sounds probably very unfamiliar to those of you who are not familiar with React at all. But just clarifying that point to those of you who are somehow already familiar with React. Basically, in the week 3, everything that you will be doing actually is you will not change any functionality, you will not add it. Actually, there is a requirement that you need to retain all of the functionality unbroken. But you will need to rewrite all of your code using functional components and React hooks. And also regarding the form in week 2 that you implemented, if in week 2 you were not allowed to use any external form libraries, in week 3 you will need to rewrite your form to use React hook form library. And yeah, again, nothing should be broken, all tests should be still passing. And everything else is again very similar here. Like questions the same, score is assessed the same way, cross-code review and cross-check. Points, again, just 15 points for this with some penalties, potential penalties here. The same repository requirements here and some links to the theory. That's it for the week 3. Let's move on to week 4. So now I would say the most interesting part of the application starts. Week 4 is about APIs and integrating your React application with APIs. So in this week, you will get to know how to work with APIs in React. Basically, what you will need to do here is to pick some external API, any such API. Some examples are listed here, but you can choose any other APIs if you want. But there are some requirements for the API. First of all, the API should support searching, pagination, and sorting. And except that, actually, you probably want to make sure that the API allows scores. And yeah, basically in the scope of this task, you will rewrite your search functionality, which you wrote like probably, I think it was in the week 1, right, where you just statically rendered a search bar with a list of cards. So you will rewrite that so that now the search functionality actually works with the API. For example, with the Rick and Morty API, you can list like all of the characters in this cartoon series, right? But when I, as a user, enter some search term in the search bar and click enter or some button which you will render near to it, I should be seeing only those characters out of this API which match my search term. So if I say like Rick, then I should be able to see all of the characters starting, for example, with Rick in their name. That can be Rick Sanchez, for example, right? Yep, that's basically it for this task. And oh no, one more thing. So there is one important thing that you need to know as soon as possible. Requirements in real life, requirements for the application change, and they change very often. So in this task, we actually imitate such change. We will imagine that some customer decided to change the requirement for the cards UI that you previously implemented. If you remember, in week 1, we were asking you to implement a card with as much details as possible in it. But in this task, you will be asked to make it minimal. So the card should become very minimal. Only very important information, for example, image and name, should be on the card itself. And to view all of the details of this card, like, I don't know what details are here, like in which episodes this character is met, right? What is the character's gender, and etc. Such information will become available on a separate model. That model will be opened when I, as a user, click on a card. So if I click on a card with Rick Sanchez, then I should see a model with all of the detailed information about Rick Sanchez. So basically, yeah, there is point number 5, a bit like detail that you will get to know yourself when you will review this. Information about the course, and everything else is very similar. You still get up to 15 points here, and we have similar penalties, and the test coverage in this task should be like higher, not less than 70%. Yep, and some links for the theory resources again. So that's it for the module 4. Let me actually quickly switch to the chat. Maybe there is something important. Okay, I see that somebody is asking to speak slower. Okay, thank you. Do we need to use classes or functions? Like as I already told, in the week 1 you will be using class components until week 3, I think, which was for the week 3 React hooks. That's when you will start using functional components with React hooks. Is the final task also Kanban board? No, it's not, and we will get to that a bit later. What about backend without Heroku? Okay, what about backend? For now, like, there is no need, like, in the weeks that we have just covered, there is no need in backend. The API that you will use in module 4 will be external API. And regarding like the tasks in which you will need some hosting, some server side, we'll talk about it a bit later. What the name of repository should be. Okay, such requirements for the repository, you can easily find them just going to the link that I shared earlier, opening any of the tasks scrolling down to repository requirements here and just reading all of the requirements for the repository. Should search bar actually filter cards? I think we already covered this question, right? In the week number 1, no. In the week number 4, when you connect the API, yes. Is there allowed to use vanilla JavaScript instead of TypeScript? No, it's not allowed. Now TypeScript is like a de facto standard. It's widely used, so that's why we think that it will be very important for you to get to learn it. So that's why TypeScript is a must. Some questions about first task. Should all components be written like class components? It's forbidden to use hooks, but to get location in header with React Router, we must use navigate hook because withRouter is deprecated. Yeah, that's actually a good question. First of all, not sure that you will need to get the current location from React Router, but if you will need it, and if withRouter is still technically acceptable, like you can use it. Or in this case, I would even say that, like, okay, just create your own wrapper. If you don't want to use withRouter for some reason because it's deprecated, right? Just create your own wrapper, which will use the hook from the React router to get the location. But then, like, most of your components and most of your code for the components should live in class components. So that's the approach that you can take. Will card list be rendered by search value? You can use whatever you will. Card list be rendered by search value? In week number 1, no. In week number 4, yes. You can use whatever you want. You don't need backend. Yeah, exactly. Can I use mock API to get JSON data for cards? I wouldn't suggest doing so. Just why? Like, be lazy and do the minimal amount of work that's required from you. You will be able to work with the API in week number 4. Until then, just render some static UI and that's it. Or if you don't want to statically render everything in code, you can just create your own local file, a JSON file, which you will read to render all of the cards. As an example. When will the distribution of mentors happen? That's a good example of a question that we can get back at the end in the Q&A session. Can I combine my main job and learning? Can you combine? Yeah, let's leave it to the end too. Can I use any UI library at week number 1? Yeah, for now, guys, ask questions regarding week number 1 to week number 4, which we covered. What kind of functionality should be in the... can I use any UI library at week 1? That's a good question. Let's see the requirements. So this is week number 1. I actually don't see any limitations for it, so potentially you are allowed to use it if nothing will change in these requirements. So yeah, you can use UI libraries in module number 1. What kind of functionality should be in the first task? Basically not much, just static search bar in which you can enter some values. And a list of cards, that's it. So no connected functionality except, I forgot about saving the search value in local storage. So that's probably the biggest piece of functionality for week 1. How should newbie attempt the module? Newbie attempt the module. Not sure what you mean in this question. Could you please clarify it a bit more? Okay, can I use Navlink route from React Router DOM? Yes, sure. React Router is a library that is allowed, and you can use any components from it. What about deadlines, where I can find information about it? Good question. I think you will be able to always see the deadlines in Rolling Scopes app. Unfortunately, I don't have it open here, and it will be a pain right now to open it and to look for the deadlines. But you'll see the deadlines there, except that I think because these are weeks, I think you can just basically assess the deadlines for yourselves, at least approximately based on the weeks. So week number 1 starts basically today, 13th of March, right? And the deadline will most probably be 19th of March or like 20th of March. Again, you can take a look at the Rolling Scopes application, RS School application, sorry, in which you can find the exact deadlines. Is it allowed to use Tailwind CSS? I think yes. I didn't see any limitation to like disallow using it. Could you point how to calculate the test's coverage? Oh, that's the thing that you will need to find out for yourself. But basically, like tools, test runners like Jest will do it for you. You just need to find out how to make them do that. That's it. Will there be a review after each week? Yeah, sure. There will be a cross-code review and cross-check review. Using hooks is forbidden at this stage. It's for all parts of task or only for card section. It's for all parts of all of the tasks until week number 3, in which you convert everything to functional components and hooks. Can we use Stitches.js for CSS? Oh, I think it's CSS in JS library, right? Yeah, again, I think yes, you can use it if you want. But the question is like, do you need that? Like the tasks are very simple, so maybe you will like think that CSS in JS library is a bit too much for these tasks and just decide to go with CSS modules, for example. But I didn't see any limitation for like not using CSS in JS, so you're free to use it. Anything which is not forbidden is allowed. Should we use our own pictures in cards? In task number 1, in week number 1, yes. Up until week number 4, basically. That's where you will switch to the external API from which you will fetch your own, from which you will fetch their images, and you can get rid of your own images at that point. Okay, that's a clarification for the question above. I mean, how to do someone who is new to programming attempt all modules, advice and guide. Well, basically the course is built for new to programming. Okay, so if you have these like preliminary skills which are required for this course, like a bit of JavaScript, TypeScript, Git and GitHub, npm Webpack, CSS3, HTML5, Chrome DevTools, and Figma, and working with external APIs, then the course itself is built in a step-by-step way, so that you can just go with week 1 first. You'll learn some basic things, and it will get more and more complex over time, not from the very beginning. So like the course program is in itself step by step. But if you will need any more like learning, then you can find additional courses on YouTube or ask for help from other people and mentors on Discord. So yeah, these are the ways. Nothing like extraordinary is required here. Main thing for the previous question is actually not being afraid to ask questions and ask for help. Join Discord and ask for help from other students. If you don't understand some topic, for example, and need some more resources, some more explanation, ask for it. Or like if you don't understand the requirements of some task, ask for it. And also any feedback is also appreciated. You can just share your feedback about the course. Maybe during the course you will find out that some topic is not covered well, or like is completely missed, and you want to share some feedback on that, please do. So should we use, okay, I answered this one. Hopefully I answered the question actually. Can we use MUI? Okay, MUI. That's, again, I will try to like re-ask this question, because this seems like pretty important question, because it kind of has cards built in. So the week number 1 task becomes kinda useless, because there you're expected to build your own card, but here you're getting the ready one. But I didn't see any like strict rejection for this library. But probably I would say up until final task, so for the first 6 weeks, it will probably be prohibited. And actually, now I think that I answered one of the previous questions about UI libraries. Are they allowed? Wrong. UI libraries will most probably be also disallowed, just because during the course, for example, in week number 1, you're expected to build some components on your own, right? So basically, UI libraries are most probably prohibited. We will clarify that. Okay, can we use nDesign? The same answer, probably no. Can we use Airbnb config? Sure, you can. From which week are we going to have mentors? From which week? Okay, let's leave this question to up until the end, to the Q&A session. Could you please cover my question about repository name? There's nothing said about it in module 1. Okay, let's take a quick look. The task should be done in your personal private repository. In the repository, create a branch. Commits history should reflect the process of app. After finishing, make a pull request. After completing the module, should be exposed for cross-checks. Okay. Yep, there is no requirement, as there's no specific requirement for the name of the repository. You can name it any way you want. It can be like ABCDEFG, or React Course 1, Module 1, anything. But it will need to satisfy these requirements. Okay, no questions right now about the tasks number 1 to 4. So let's move on to Module 5. So Module 5 is a week when you will be working with external state management stuff. In the case of this course, it's Redux, because it's still very popular. You will be using Redux actually with RTK, and the task does not include any functional change. You will just need to move your state, your application state, from local React component state to the Redux state. Not all of it, but some of it, some important pieces of state like search text, and you will also need to remove it from the local storage now. Search results also should be saved in Redux, and all of the form submissions, basically actions in module 2, should go through the Redux using like the actions, and they should also be able to navigate between routes. or sorry, maybe I understood this a bit wrong. With those changes, you should be able to navigate between routes. Oh no, yeah. Basically, that's it. The detail which is set here is about if you move all of this state to Redux, then when you will be switching between different routes, because the state is now managed inside Redux, not in a component, the state will not disappear and switching routes will not lose any state on UI. And API requests should be moved to thunks. Thunks are also part of Redux ecosystem that you will get to know during the course. Everything else is again very similar. So cross-code review, cross-check, up to 15 points. Test coverage is now 80%. Repository requirements and some theory. So, and the last module in the first part of the program is week 6 about server-side rendering and server-side generation in React. So during this week, you will learn how to do server-side rendering in React, because React itself is a UI library, right? So by default, it renders only on the client side in the browser itself. In this week, you'll learn how to pre-render the application on the server. That's basically server-side rendering, and how to do some server-side generation. Again, no functional changes to your application in this week, just implementing the SSR, SSG, what's important is using the native React capabilities. You are not allowed to use any frameworks with SSG like Remix or Next.js. These kind of frameworks are not allowed. React itself has some capabilities to do server-side rendering, server-side generation, and you will need to use those. Except that you will need to integrate Redux with SSR, because that's also a technical thing to think about, actually. And one of the new things here that you will be doing is adding end-to-end tests for the application using Cypress. So yeah, basically here you will need to add some end-to-end tests with coverage not below than 80%. And everything else is again very similar. So basically the same cross-code review and cross-check review, the same up to 15% points with some penalties for these criteria, the same repository requirements, and some theory here for server-side renderings, for Cypress, and for some other stuff, just as extra information for your general knowledge extension about Next.js, Remix, and Gatsby.js. So yeah, that's it for the first big part of the course program. Are there any other questions about it? Okay, could you please cover? Okay, this I answered, and seems like no questions actually. Let me probably see here. Yeah, nothing. So OBS is showing update information. Okay, let's move on then, if no questions for now. Then the next in our plan is week number from 7 to 10. That's the phase in the course in which you will start implementing a final task. It will be a bigger kind of application, which you will actually implement with a team. So all of you will be separated into teams of several people, and each team will also be assigned a mentor who will basically be somewhat a manager or a team lead, but that team lead who doesn't actually write code. Mentor will help you set up the processes, to set up the teamwork, or help you around during the process when you implement. For example, if you meet some technical issues, then you can ask for help from your mentor. But very importantly, all of the code has to be written by you. Your mentor will not write any code. So what this task is actually about? It is about building a graphical clone. I'm not sure, probably some of you are familiar with graphical playground, but some of you for sure are not. And let me quickly show you what this application looks like. Basically, graphical is a tool in which you can play around with GraphQL APIs. So its UI looks similar to this. This is actually official graphical tool. It has this editor in which you can write your queries or anything like that. You can run it and see the results. You can enter some variables for the queries. You'll get to know like what all of these variables, headers, GraphQL, and queries in GraphQL mean during, again, the course program using those resources links. But basically, yeah, your final task will be to build a clone of this application. And let's get back to GitHub now. So, yes, there are some theoretical notes about what graphical is, so you can find it and take a look at it. And you, as I said earlier, you will work in teams of 3 members, and you can find some teamwork guidelines in this link. Application prototype. So regarding the design of your final application implementation, you are free to do whatever you want. If like your final submission just satisfies all of the acceptance criteria listed for the final application here. But the UI can look any way you want. You're very free to do anything your imagination allows. So in this case, for the final application, you will actually also not need any backend, unless some exceptional case when you want to use an external GraphQL API which does not support course. Basically, in this task, you will need to pick any external GraphQL API, third-party GraphQL API, using which you will play around in your graphical tool. So your graphical tool will be for building queries, mutations, and sending them, executing them, targeted towards that third-party GraphQL API that you picked. And as an example, like same Rick and Morty API actually has, as far as I know, its GraphQL variant in it. So as an example, you can use this or anything you want, and you can find. So the next thing here is that how the application should look like. It should contain welcome page, user authentication. You will build a user authentication. We'll talk about it a bit later deeper. And the most important functionality is the graphical page itself with the request editor. That's basically this editor on the left side. Variables editor, it's basically this one on the bottom left side. And then headers editor, which is optional. That's this panel over here. Documentation Explorer, basically like GraphQL APIs with schemas or anything like that can support writing documentation for themselves, and basically your task involves fetching a documentation for the API you picked and displaying it in a separate panel, like here, for example, in this case. So basically, I clicked on the documentation explorer button, and it shows all of the docs for the current API that I picked, but I didn't pick anything specifically, so it's very minimal here. Except that it should also include responses section, of course. That's the section on the right side. So when you execute your query or mutation, you should see the result here, basically. Yep. In this case, there are a bit different repository requirements. In this case, the repository will be created not by you as a student, but by your team lead, who is a mentor. As far as I know, yeah. I actually might be mistaken. Maybe you will be able to pick a team lead inside of your own team, actually. I am not sure myself, and I would suggest you to ask this question if you want in the Discord channel, or go through the documentation with the teamwork documentation right here, teamwork guidelines, and maybe you'll find out some information just there. Teamwork nuances are described here. This is basically also RS documentation about how to work in a team. And repo name should be named graphical app. That's the exact requirement in this case already. Yep, and basically some other requirements that you will be able to read yourself on your own offline later. But other processes are very similar. So you make your repo public after the deadline, similarly to the previous weeks. What's interesting in this case is that you will need to deploy it. As far as I remember, in the previous weeks, you are not required to deploy any of your tasks. Let me just quickly recheck that. Yep, as you can see, those who will be reviewing and checking your submission will launch your application on their own by just cloning your repository. But in the case of the final task, you will need to deploy a demo version of your application into any services like GitHub Pages, Netlify, Heroku, or any other similar service. I would, for example, suggest Vercel, at least looking at it. Yeah, regarding the processes, here you will probably want to communicate this with your mentor, but basically, again, you are very free to choose any GitHub branching Git branching process strategy that you want. Some of the examples are just listed here. And then regarding, like, we have talked about the functional requirements for the final task, right? What it should look like. Basically, it's a clone of this, a simpler clone of this, but there are also some technical requirements in this final task. Your application will need to support localization in at least 2 languages, and a locale switcher, a language switcher, should of course be visible on UI in header. For example, somewhere here you will have a drop down or like just 2 buttons for 2 different languages. And another technical requirement here is a semantic layout. So use semantic HTML, don't use divs and spans everywhere. The browser support is pretty simple here. It's very allowing. Just the latest version of Google Chrome browser is enough. You will need some private routes, 404 page, and error boundary. You'll find out about what these exactly mean if you don't know yet later on during the course itself. But basically, private routes are the routes which are not available to those users who are not logged in to your application. If you remember, we will need to have user authentication here. And using jQuery, this is like an explicit rule. in my opinion, it's a bit funny rule, but using jQuery is not allowed at all. Why jQuery if you have React and you have vanilla JavaScript? jQuery is mostly not needed nowadays. You must use React 18 with suspense feature just to get to know some newer features of React that are being built. And in this case, you can use actually Vite or any React framework. I'm not sure why Vite is here. It's not really a framework, but you can use frameworks like Next.js, Remix, Gatsby, or anything you want. You can use CSS frameworks, any JS component UI libraries you want, like nDesign and Material UI that were mentioned in the chat, any HTML and CSS preprocessors. And again, you still must use TypeScript. Also, there might be some like very smarties out of you who decide to just open the source of the graphical tool itself and just to copy it. Like there is a repository, it's open source, and it has all of the code that is required for the tool itself. But you are not allowed to copy the code from here. You are, of course, allowed to take a look at the code, take some ideas out of it, just gather some information from it, but it is strictly forbidden to copy. And we have ways to actually find out copy pastes out of this and any other like copy pastes of other students, for example. And it says that this ban applies to HTML, CSS, and JS code. For example, if you want, you can most probably use some assets out of it. Basically that's it for the technical requirements. Application design requirements. Let's talk about how you will be building your application. So the application quality is characterized by the I'm looking at this point for the first time myself too. By the elaboration of details, attention to typography, no more than 3 fonts per page, font size of at least 14 pixels, optimal font and background contrast, carefully selected content. Okay, so basically this is a point about some UI best practices. The point of this item is to make sure that your application will look nicely. It doesn't have to be looking very nice, like as if it was designed by a professional designer, of course, but some general basic principles should be still there. Like fonts, they should be very much readable, so that's why the minimal size is 14 pixels, for example, right? The UI should not look like too much overwhelmed, so no more than 3 fonts per page and things like that, basically. Except that your application should be adaptive to different screen sizes, and the minimal screen size is 320 pixels. Your application controls should also be interactive. For example, what that means is that if you have buttons in your application, then most probably you should have some hover effects on them so that users have some feedback that these controls are interactable. And except that, the unity of styles, the look and feel across the application should be similar. So it should not be that if you open some part of the application, it feels like a completely different application, and then some other part of application seems like some separate third application. So just try to apply similar styles, similar look and feel across the application. So yeah, we have talked about the design requirements here. And the next section here is description of function blocks. Basically, I will not go through all of these in detail. I will just highlight some of the important parts here, and you are free to check this documentation on your own later in higher detail if you want. So basically, as we said previously, welcome page will be needed. Your application should contain header with some links to private routes or a sign out button, because we have user authentication, right? And then a footer in which you just leave some links to your GitHub and to the course itself. The most interesting point in my opinion here is the sign in, sign up. So basically, you might have a question: how do we implement authentication, user authentication on the front end? Not actually using anything, any backend, our own backend, right? Because this task said that application doesn't require a backend. The answer to that is that you will need to use Firebase. There is an article listed here. You can open and read that, which just basically explains how to handle user authentication with Firebase without even needing to have your own dedicated server. So basically, yeah, you'll just use Firebase for the user authentication, and that's it. And is there anything important yet here? So main route graphical, yep. How to submit tasks, yep. Evaluation criteria, yeah. How to submit tasks, I think you can just read it on your own later. Evaluation criteria here, maximum amount of points that you can get for this task is 120, 90 of which is for cross-check, and 30 is for the involvement into a project, your own involvement. Like each separate member of the team will be assessed separately here, and those scores will be assigned by the mentors of each team. So they will assess how much were you involved in the project. That's just to avoid some very lazy people, maybe like me, who might not want to like do anything and just get free scores. I don't know. Okay, and there is some detailed description of cross-check criteria here. In the final task, there is much more functionality, and that's why this section about like scores for each single piece of functionality is written in detail separately here, in more detail than other previous modules. So you can take a look at how your application here will be scored later on offline. Just go through each of these points one by one, just to identify what will be important for the reviewers in your application. And there is also a list of penalties in this case, with even like the amount of points which can be reduced from your final score for each of these points. One more important thing here is there won't be any cross-code review actually. Why is that? That's basically because during your teamwork you will always be opening pull requests for your work. For example, if I'm in some team and I implemented some piece of functionality, I don't just go and merge it into the main branch, don't push it there, right? I create a pull request which will be reviewed by the team, including the mentor of the team. So as you can identify here, during the process of your app development, your code will already be reviewed at least by a mentor who probably already knows what is good and bad in the code, right? More or less. So that's why no explicit cross-code review here. And another interesting small point is that in this task, you are not really required to cover your code with tests, but of course that's That's in general a good practice of software engineers. So if you will do that, that's a great bonus just to yourself. So yeah, basically that's it for the final task. Let me quickly just take a look at the chat to see if there are any questions about it. I saw this comment about Arc and Arc One Love. Yeah, I agree. I love Arc. For those of you who are wondering what is Arc, Arc is the browser which I'm using here. It's just a bit different philosophy for the browsers. So let's see. Do we need to use classes? So the last question that I answered was let me find it. Should we make okay? On what basis will we be assigned to teams? Random, score? That's actually a good question. I'm not sure that it is described there. From the previous experience that I have heard, I think you can probably even create a team on your own. So if you have some students with which you are familiar, then you can just agree on creating your own team and work like that. And others will probably be just assigned to teams somewhat randomly. I'm not sure if the score criteria will be taken into account. That's actually a good question, and I encourage you to go and ask it in Discord channel. And yeah, regarding such questions, I noticed that I wasn't able to answer several questions already. And I wasn't expected to, honestly. I can't answer everything. Very soon we will have a just give me a second. I think I might have the document already, what I want to share with you. Just give me a second. You will not see my screen for some time. Okay, let me check. So basically what I'm looking for is the Google Docs in which we will collect your questions. It will become kind of FAQ section. So we will collect your questions there. You will have access to the doc, and you will be able to leave your questions, and we will try to answer those questions. Actually, not me probably, but other members of the community will answer your questions there, so that everybody else can just take a look and have a ready answer for their question if they have the same question. So I'm just looking if we already have that document. Okay, no, we don't. So yeah, such document will be created pretty soon and will be shared in the Discord announcements, so please tune in. And you can leave such questions like how the teams will be assigned in that doc. Next question, should we make atomic commits in GitHub? Commit requirements are listed in the tasks. For the final task, I think it had a link. Yeah, right here, commit history should display application development process, but basically commit requirements are then right here. Not sure if there is already a translation into English though, but hopefully there will be an English version of this document if it doesn't exist yet. At the moment when you will start working on final task. But yeah, it basically looks very similar to conventional commits, if you are familiar with it. And this standard is also used in our front-end course. So if you are from there, then you should be already familiar with the process of commits. Okay, let me switch to the chat again. Is it possible to have also all materials and tasks on Russian, just if there are some problems with understanding? I'm not sure about that. I think we should have a Russian version of this same React course actually, or not, maybe not this same React course, but potentially it can be from the previous runs. But actually, honestly, most probably we have it in Russian for this same course. So just ask a question in Discord, and contributors will answer you with the links. And yeah, Arc One Love. Will any certificate be given for those who passed all the tasks? Yes, sure. Just as in our front-end course, if you successfully graduate this React course, you will be given a certificate for the successful completion of the course. Is Next.js allowed for final task? Yes, it is. Do we need to make our app layout responsive at week 1? I think no, there was no such requirement, so no. But if you are in doubt again, you can just ask your question in Discord. Will RS choose student for cross-check, or will we choose by ourselves? Will one student check one work? As far as I know from the previous experience, no, one student will not check only a single work. Or no, maybe I'm mistaken. Yeah, I haven't participated in the latest courses, so I'm not sure about the second part of the question. Maybe a single student will check a single work, or like that student can check multiple works at the same time. But if you are asking about in between the tasks, one student can check task number 1, for example, and then that same student can also check task number 2 later on, for sure. So, and regarding the first part, no, you will not be able to choose students for cross-check on your own. They will be assigned by the system. I don't get it. What we need to do for this week? For this week, like for the first week, for week number 1 listed in here, please clarify. I'm not sure what you mean. So he explained the whole course, not just week 1. Yep. Yeah, this stream is about the whole course. Okay, but what I need to do for this week? Okay, for this week, were you announced anything else except this stream? I'm just aware of this stream only, but in general, you should have some announcements in Discord regarding the first week too. And except that, I will also go and ask the Rolling Scope School team for the assistance in this question, because I don't know like what's expected right now from you for the week number 1. Do you have to wait for something, or are you safe to? Should you just go and start doing module 1 already? And again, you can just still go and ask that same question on Discord. Okay, I participated in autumn and I did till the 3rd task. Will I continue in this coming tutorials, or will I restart from the initial step? If you participated in the previous runs and you did not graduate successfully, you will need to restart the course from scratch, because the program in each time can be different, a bit different. As I remember, you mentioned that course is intensive, like 20-40 hours per week, but what kind of schedule will it be exactly? Is it known? Yes, the schedule itself, like if you mean like deadlines or something, as I already previously mentioned, it's just consecutive 10 weeks from the 13th of March, which is today, till the 15th of May, and I don't see any breaks here, so that's basically like each week you do a separate task, and that's for 10 weeks. So the next one, scroll up and find the course link, then see module 1, it means week 1. Yeah, if the question was actually about the week 1 was exactly about this, then you can just open the link which I shared previously, open the week 1 and just go through it and start your study and work. That will be basically what's expected from you for week 1. And the next one, should we avoid using type any in code as it counts as mistakes? Yes, that's for sure. There is even a mention of that in the I think there should be a mention of that in the description requirements for the tasks. You are not allowed to use any. For each usage of any, you will get a penalty in score. So don't do that, because that completely rejects all of the benefits of using TypeScript. Okay, some more questions and we are safe to move on. Should we avoid using type any? Okay, I don't really understand this. If this was addressed to me, please translate. Seems like you have spent some time on keyboard. What is the model? Okay, yeah, thank you for the compliment. Probably you have heard it from the microphone, right? It's too loud for the microphone because my microphone is right on the table close to the keyboard. The keyboard itself is dark project with weird numbering. Don't really remember, just give me a second. Let me just share it a bit later in the chat for you, the model itself. So next, how much times it's possible to break the deadline of tasks? Or here, if you won't make at least one task, you will be expelled. Not really. As far as I know, you can be late for some of the deadlines. Of course, there will be penalties for that, and the highest important thing for your graduation is actually your score. If you miss the tasks, then you will not get scores for it, right? And there is a minimum requirement for in scores to get a certificate of graduation. So and considering also that most of the tasks depend on each other, they are consecutive, and if you don't implement task number 1, you will not be able to implement task number 2. That means that you should better not skip any, and you should better submit everything on deadlines. But some latencies, I think, are allowed with penalties, and please notify your mentors upfront for it. Should we avoid? Seems like okay. Message. Will this stream be recorded and saved for us? Yes, sure. That will be. It will be saved and it will be available on YouTube. Don't worry. It sounds like music. Thank you. During a week, we have just homework to do on our own, or are there any kind of lectures which will help to do it? That's actually a good question. There might be lectures from the volunteers in Discord, probably. I have seen such practice before, but I'm not aware of any planned schedule for the lectures for the course actually. But let me check that once again with the Rolling Scope School team, with the course team, and we will try to answer you either on Discord or in that document that we will share, or you'll just receive that information on Discord. If no, again, please re-ask this same question on Discord. to do. Okay, point deductions for week 1 to 6, cross checks and cross code reviews are not really described in the docs. Is it up to the students reviewing the PRs? Kinda. They the docs are not describing the exact points, but that doesn't mean that you will be subtracted from all. That doesn't mean that the reviewer is allowed to subtract all of your points at once for the whole task, just because of one single mistake. There are actually limitations, and you'll probably know them a bit later. I'm not sure if that information is public yet. Thank you. Do we need to make test with graphical? Do we need to make task with graphical? Do you mean like the final task? Yes, you will need to do that. That's part of the program. Okay, I think I got to the wrong page. Okay, that's it for the questions for now, and let me quickly switch to the section with technical React interview. So basically, actually, sorry, before that, let me just quickly cover week number 11. Week number 11 exists here just for the cross-check reviews. They can just take some time after your final submission, which is after week number 10. So naturally, week number 11 will be spent to do cross-check reviews for your application, for your submissions, right? So that's basically why this is here. Now let's switch to technical React interview. So during, while you will be implementing your final task, technical interviews will be conducted with you, but actually the interview itself is optional, as mentioned here. It's not mandatory, and you can still get a certificate without this interview. This is just an opportunity for you to get to know how, somehow, how real React interviews look, for example, in job interviews, right? So that's basically it. As I said, this will be conducted during your work on the final task after the 6 modules completion, and there is one eligibility criteria for the interview. To be eligible for interview participation, you as a student should have at least 40 points during the first 6 modules, or as an exceptional case, you can have a recommendation from the mentor. If your mentor will recommend you as a student who should take part in the technical interview, then yes, you are also eligible. And you can go through this doc just to get familiar with how the interview will go through, and moreover, it's actually written as for the interviewers, not for you students who will be interviewed. So it's even more useful. You will get to know about the process from the other perspective, and you will know what to expect. But basically, what else will you most probably be interested in is the questions, right? So you can check the list of potential interview questions. This is not limited to these specific questions, but most of them will probably be out of this list. So these are just pretty standard to React. These questions are asked very often during any kind of interviews for React, like in JSX. What is JSX? React DOM. And yeah, basically just go through the topics and learn on your own to be prepared for the technical interview itself. The structure of the interview, just as a brief overview, it will be first introduction, of course. You will introduce yourself, and the interviewer will introduce himself or herself, and then interviewer will start asking you questions, theoretical questions. After that, there is a section with a practical task. Interviewer will ask you to solve a practical task in React, and basically that's it for the interview. You say bye to each other, you go apart, and then you will receive, after some time, you'll receive a feedback for how well you did on the interview. Also, you can get scores for the interview, and you can get up to 15 points for passing this interview. So yeah, basically that's it for the interview. Let me see if you guys have any questions about the interview. Do we need to meet? Okay, nothing still. Nothing yet. And actually, now we are done with the course overview, so you can now ask any questions you want about the course, maybe about the community itself, or anything. So yeah, we are moving on to the Q&A session. When do we get mentors? Okay, as far as I know, in this course, in the first 6 weeks, you will not actually need a mentor. That's because, like, previously one of the important tasks for the mentor was, like, for the personal mentor, was to review your code. But right now in this course run, other students will be reviewing your code. So I'm not sure if, like, even that you will be assigned a personal mentor in the first 6 weeks. But again, I might be wrong. I'll check it out once again. But for the final task, you will be assigned mentors before the final task itself. So the interview will be in English. Well, yeah, I suppose so, because the course is in English, right? And we, like, also probably want to estimate your English knowledge, including your React skills. But most probably, if you really want some other language, you can probably agree with your mentor, who will be conducting an interview for you. But even then, you will have to pass some kind of section in this interview in English. And I'm like, about passing, like, interviews in other languages. I'm just speaking about it from my previous experience, but my experience was not in global course runs, it was in local course runs. So maybe it will not be actually possible at all to have an interview in other language, because let's imagine a case, this is a global run, right? And mentors can be from anywhere in the world. So if you want Russian, for example, but your interviewer doesn't know Russian, then there's no chance. So yeah, that might be even impossible to have an interview in any other languages except English. Who is going to conduct interviews? Active students, mentors, or some other stuff? It's mentors. So before the interview phase, a list of volunteer mentors will be collected, which will be arranged to the students to conduct the interviews. Will the interview be recorded? No. Again, I'm speaking just from my previous experience. We didn't record any interviews. But if you want for yourself to record the interview, I think you can agree on that with your mentor, and you can most probably just easily record it for your own purposes, if both sides agree, of course. Yep. Anything else? Okay, guys, I don't see any other questions, and we have covered all of the things that we were planning to cover in the stream. So I think that should be it for today. Okay, there is a question: can we share the interview? Can we share the interview with whom? Like, I'm not really sure what you want to achieve here. Um, why would you need to share the interview with some other person? I mean, technically, it's probably possible. And again, if you agree with the interviewer and the interviewer will say yes to your request, then yeah, technically you can probably do that. But like again, doing it just out of the blue is not good, at least like personally, because for example that interviewer might not like his interview being shared in some places. So yeah, that I hope that answers your question. And if no other questions, then thank you everybody. Thank you for your time. Hopefully I was able to cover everything that's needed in this stream, and have a great day or night or any time of the day that you have. Thank you. Bye.